Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Tyler from the Keep Pounding podcast. Today, we're going to recap the Dan Morgan presser that was yesterday. We're going to go over just the season in general, what the core pieces. There's a lot of young core pieces that he mentioned that we're going to build around. We're going to talk about upcoming free agency priorities, some cap considerations. Obviously, there's going to be some tough decisions on the current roster. Uh, we'll kind of maybe get into a little bit of like potential extensions, who possibly could get cut, maybe some restructures, and just what's the biggest offseason needs heading into next year, and what is success for next year? What is success for us? So this offseason is extremely important to establishing ourselves as not just a team that's competing for the division, but this is a season that we should be looking at being an NFC contender. And Dan Morgan's decisions, Brant Tillis's decisions, them together are going to tell us exactly where the Panthers are going to be headed. So I want to get into the content. So we're just going to go over what's next for the Panthers, and we're going to go over some possible free agency stuff and some roster decisions. So let's see here. So before we get into it, let me pull over. There we go. All right. So if you guys haven't already, go and vote for the rookies. Go NFL.com/rookies. Vote for T-Mac. I do think, outside of Trey Hendrickson, the running back for the Patriots, rookie running back for the Patriots, I think T-Mac is like the clear cut not a guy that's going to win it all. So he's had 70 receptions, which he led all rookie wide receivers, over 1,000 yards. That was the Panthers record that led all rookies. 7 touchdowns that led all rookies. Explosive plays, which is obviously 15 yards or more, with 30, led all rookies. It could have been more. He had some drops, but again, to me, hands down, T-Mac is the front runner for the Offensive Rookie of the Year award. So again, Travion Henderson, I think is the only real threat to T-Mac. He had almost just under 1,000 yards rushing. He averaged 5.1 yards per carry, had 10 total touchdowns. He caught out of the backfield as well for over a couple hundred yards, or 200 yards. So, he definitely is someone that could possibly win it too, but I just think T-Mac just did a lot, man. T-Mac, I just think he deserves it. So, again, Panther fans, if you haven't already, go to NFL.com/rookies and vote for T-Mac. And you can do it several times. Okay, so I want to get into it a little bit. Let's get into it a little bit. Okay, so obviously the Panthers picked up Bryce's fifth-year option. That's going to be $26.5 million guaranteed in the 2027 season. Dan Morgan, during his press conference, didn't really commit to extending Bryce Young. I just think what we saw this year, I think it's fair to say that Bryce is inconsistent. And Dan mentioned this during his presser. He saw flashes of greatness, but you didn't see the consistency. And it wasn't just Bryce Young. It was the offense. The team had inconsistencies. But Bryce, again, needs to show consistency in order for him to get a long-term deal, in my opinion. Contract talks, I think, are not really going to be something that's going to be brought up, in my opinion, that Dan Morgan, Brant Tillis. I think they're going to talk about that, but I just don't think that actual talks will be underway until either late next season. If Bryce Young balls, if he does really well, I think they could possibly extend him in the season. Or obviously this is going to be something they're going to talk about going into the 2027 season. So Bryce Young, well-deserved. Obviously, I think he deserves getting the fifth-year option. You don't really have anybody else that you're not in a position to draft anybody. There's no one in free agency that's going to be better than Bryce. This makes sense. And Bryce Young, I hope he continues to get better. A part of that is obviously him executing well, getting on the same page with receivers, and the offense in general clicking. But I also think a part of this is Dave Canales' play calling. We know we've seen the glimpses of greatness that he's had it when Dave Canales has allowed him to throw the ball down the field. So if Dave Canales, and we'll talk about him in a little bit, I think Bryce Young will benefit if Dave Canales opens things up for him. So going into this season, obviously he's going to be our quarterback. I don't think anybody else thought differently. I did think this was going to obviously happen. I didn't know it was going to happen right away, but it makes sense to do it now. So there's not really any lingering questions over this. So Bryce Young getting fifth year option, good thing. Hopefully he'll ball out, and then this time next year we're talking about an extension, and then hopefully, and that could be anywhere from 40 to 55 million, depending on how well he does. So um, I think it's too early, and I think it's malpractice for them to sign an extension now. I think that's a big gamble. Could he be our potential franchise quarterback? Absolutely, he could. But I still think there's a lot of question marks, and the biggest one obviously is consistency. What you need consistency at that position. You can't just show flashes. If you just show flashes, you're not going to be a consistent winner in this league, and you're not going to win championships. So hopefully Bryce can take the next step moving forward. But speaking of quarterbacks, Dan Morgan did mention and did talk about Andy Dalton a little bit, talk about possibly bringing him back. But also, I think what I think is more likely to happen is Dan Morgan mentioned that he wants to possibly bring in a younger guy, a rookie developmental guy as a backup. I think Andy Dalton, I don't think he will get an extension. I think he's done. Could Bryce benefit from him being the backup quarterback and still have that veteran leadership and help Bryce continue to develop? Sure. Is that a possibility? Absolutely. Could you bring in someone like, I doubt it, but someone like Malik Willis or another young / a vet to come in there and give Bryce Young competition? I think so. There's a lot of reports with Malik Willis possibly getting a starter gig. I think he played for the Packers this year and did it well when Jordan Love was out, but I just don't see him being a starter in this league. But you never know. You never know. So, but it does sound like, and it makes sense, that he wants to add competition to that room. The quarterback's no different. But I did think going into this season, they may get a vet, like someone that could not like a rookie, but somebody that's been in the league for a while that could hold down the offense a little bit until Bryce Young gets healthy if there's an injury for next year. Obviously, Andy Dalton is kind of fallen off. I just think that his days in Carolina are over. It's time to get somebody else, and I just think it's going to be a younger guy that's maybe in his 5th, 6th year, not like a super old guy like Andy. So, no offense. But again, I just don't see him getting a contract extension. But speaking of contract extensions, the Panthers secretly, so Evero got a contract extension after last season, which was obviously the historical worst defense in the NFL as far as points allowed. The Panthers made sure to hide it pretty well, because I think a lot of Panther fans would have been furious, obviously, and rightfully so, with having the worst defense in the league, and then you get an extension. So Dan Morgan mentioned that Evero's contract does line up with Dave Canales, which makes sense. So it does seem like these two are married together. The only way that Evero is not going to be the defensive coordinator next year is if he gets a head coaching gig. He had an interview for the Raiders. He had an interview with the Falcons. I don't think that's going to happen. Could it happen? Possibly. Evero, he's put this defense from the worst defense in the league to the 15th ranked defense in the NFL. So that's a possibility. It's not a top 10 defense, but he's well respected in the NFL, and it could be a possibility, but I do not think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. Now, with Evero, I get that one of the and it's, I think it makes sense. So with Evero, it really seemed this year anything, and I mentioned this to a couple of friends of mine at work that we talk about football. I'm like, I would love to know the stat when it comes to 3rd and long. How do we rank in the NFL when it comes to 3rd and long and how being able to come off of the field? And there's actually a stat that I saw today about that. So we are dead last in defense when it comes to 3rd and long conversion rates, and it's not even close. It's not even close. We can talk about the lack of pressure on the by our edge rushers. Yes, of course, that's a factor. But so but so is what is so frustrating by the fans regarding Evero is it's just his soft coverage in these situations. He I get you don't have in obvious passing downs in order really to get to the quarterback, Evero's had to use Trayvon Moehrig. Like that's the best blitzer that they have on the team as a safety. So when your best blitzer, the best person, the person that converts more pressure than even the edge rushers is a safety, that's an issue. So again, like we do need to upgrade at the edge rusher position as well as inside linebacker that can cover and blitz better. But this just isn't just a personnel issue. This is a play calling issue, in my opinion. No one, honestly, no one can really tell me otherwise. I get that we don't have a good pass rush, but I'm not an X's and O's guy. But I really don't feel like I need to be in order to come up with a conclusion that everyone needs to be more aggressive in obvious passing situations. We're also fourth worst in the NFL when it comes to converting on third and long on offense. And again, I don't think that's a lack of execution. It's not just a lack of execution or personnel. I think that's play calling too. And that's Dave Canales. The season offensively, there was a lot more inconsistencies in my opinion on offense versus defense. I think as a head coach, Canales is doing a great job, but as a play caller, he needs to improve. He's been too conservative at times. He needs to be able to figure out what isn't working well, what is and what isn't working well. But it seems like he figures out what isn't working well too late. Or I don't know if it's like his unwillingness to change things in game, like run and pass. Like there's games where we're having a good running game, or the running game isn't going well. So, but yet he doesn't really modify his game plan and try to open things up, throwing the ball down the field. We saw that with the Niners game. We weren't running the ball well. And then when we were throwing the ball, we're throwing the ball 3, 4, 5 yards. We weren't opening up down the field. We had like maybe 3 or 4 attempts throwing down the ball down the field. So again, like he's putting again, and it's not just Canales, it's collectively, but Canales is a part of this. I think there's examples of him figuring stuff out too late, like the Rico and Chuba thing. Rico, when he had those back-to-back games, which we'll talk about a little bit, where he had really good games between Miami and Dallas, and then while Chuba was hurt, when Chuba came back, he tried to split it, and they really couldn't figure things out between Rico and Chuba, and it just looked like a mess. It's just there's times where you go with the hot hand, and there's other times, like for example, like if Robert Hunt is out, and then you have Austin Corbett as the right guard, even if Austin Corbett does well, you're putting in the Robert Hunt, who's an All-Pro, a Pro Bowler. Like, but this isn't the same when it comes to Rico and Chuba, right? It's just different. It took forever for him to promote Jalen Coker at wide receiver 2, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But he needs to be able to identify what works and what doesn't, and make changes or tweaks when it's necessary, like play calling, like personnel. So this is something that I want to see going into the season is, can Dave Canales do a better job at being able to make better decisions faster versus learning things after the game and then implementing it the next week. And then also play calling. He needs to allow Bryce, especially if this is the 5th-year option, right? Going into the 5th-year option, he's going to year 4, but this year and next year, this year coming up and next year, these are important. If you want to know if he's a franchise guy, if you want to know if he's a franchise guy, you need to be able to allow him. You need to open up the playbook and allow him to play. And I get this season we were exceeding expectations, even though it was win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. But Dave Canales, it makes sense. He wants to win. He wants to make the playoffs. So yes, you want your quarterback to throw the ball down the field, but when you know your running game at the time was really good, and your quarterback has been hot and cold, and you want to win, it's hard to, and I get, that's got to be a difficult position to say, do I allow him to throw the ball down the field And if he makes a mistake, it's a turnover, and maybe I could have played a little bit more conservatively. We could have won the game. I get all that. That's tough. That's a tough position. But we noticed, just overview on the season, we saw that when he allowed Bryce Young to throw the ball down the field, good things happened. And we saw what happened in the Rams game, both the games, both in the regular season and the wild card this past Saturday. With Jalen Coker, boy, bro, I'm excited about that. We'll talk about him in a little bit, but um, this offense, you got to allow those guys. You got to allow Bryce to throw the ball down the field. You got to be able to find that balance. I get that the offensive line uh, had their injuries. You had Robert Hunt that was out majority of the season. You had Brady Christensen that was backing him up, got an Achilles tear. You had multiple injuries. The offensive line is kind of being shuffled versus the year before. It was very stable throughout the whole season. So that definitely is a factor for sure. Let's see. But I want to get into a little bit Rico Dottle. So Rico, so he had an interview or in the locker room with some of the beat reporters and was talking about what he said in that interview and what Dan Morgan said during his presser. Totally different things. It's like how you talk to your mom when you're in front of her versus how you talk about your mom when she's not there. That's what it seemed like. So when according to Dan Morgan, Rico said that it was cordial. He didn't get any sense that he wanted to leave. But then when he meets with the reporters, he wants to be able to go somewhere where he gets the bulk of the carries. I don't see that happening, to be honest. It could happen. I mean, he had several good games. Rico is a reason why we made the playoffs, right? He's one of the reasons why we made the playoffs when Chuba was hurt. He had the Miami game. He had over 200 yards. He had the Dallas game where he had 180 plus yards. And again, remember those defenses, not trying to take any credit away from Rico, but want to add some context to that, where those are the worst rushing run defenses in the league at that time. He, had a good game at Green Bay and Lambeau. He rushed for 130 yards. So like he had games, like he's a good running back, but outside of those 30 games, he averaged 40 yards per game rushing. That's not good. Even with splitting carries, like you want 60, but again, he's helped us win games, no doubt, but not consistent in the back half of the season. To me, this is a two-back league. Unless you're Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, you need to produce when you're called upon. You can't just say, I need the ball more and I'll eventually produce. No, you can't. Like, sure, you want to get in a rhythm, but you're not a primary elite RB1. You're not. You're a good running back, but you're not elite. And unless you're elite, again, unless you're one of those three other backs that I mentioned, you're good at split carries. But Rico Dowdle, he posted this tweet several days ago and said the line didn't just fall off a cliff. Trust me, you'll see. And I was confused. I'm like, on this graph here, you'll see that he would get to 2 yards before contact, but then also his yards after contact was low. Like he was one of the worst in the NFL. So like I don't know, like this tweet made him look bad. I didn't get it. So if you're saying the line didn't just fall off a cliff, are you saying it's play calling, or are you saying it's because you didn't get enough as many carries as you like? So to me, this was like kind of this tweet didn't make sense to me. It didn't. I thought it made him look bad, to be honest with you. But again, according to Dan Morgan, they had a good conversation, but the tweet and then how he talked about his situation with the beat reporters, he seemed disgruntled. I don't think he's going to resign here, to be honest with you. I just don't see it. Could it happen? Sure, but I just don't think he's happy with the way the carries are split. I think the contract this year was a win-win for both sides. I definitely think there'll be a deal out there that he'll get more money from somewhere else versus here, but we'll see. But I honestly find it highly unlikely that he is going to resign this year. But one running back that will be here next year, Jonathan Brooks. So Jonathan Brooks, if you guys remember, he tore his ACL in 2023 in November when he played for Texas. Came into the 2024 NFL season as a rookie second round pick. Missed 9 games. He played a few games. He retore his ACL. I think it was week 14. I know it was against Philly. I believe it was non-contact, but but that obviously sidelined him for the rest of that season and this whole season. So he is healthy. It's just with 2 ACL tears, that's going to make it very difficult. I don't know. There have been running backs out there that have done that. I believe Nick Chubb was one of them. But this guy is somebody. If he can stay healthy, this is he. Even when we drafted him, if he wasn't injury prone at that time, he would have been a first round pick. Like, he's first round talent. This guy's explosive. He's physical. He gets yards after contact. He catches out of the backfield. But if he can stay healthy, Chuba Brooks can be an amazing 1-2 punch. But I just don't think we can go into the season counting on Brooks being our RB2 with 2 ACL tears. But again, I don't think they sign Rico. I think they are content with Chuba, Brooks, and Etienne. I don't think they are content with just those 3. Let me be clear. I don't think they're content with just those 3 guys, especially with Brooks being injury prone. But again, most likely we're not going to re-sign Rico. I think we get a running back in free agency or the draft. Running backs are expendable. You can find a good one in the 5th round. We have Trevor Etienne, but also I thought Trevor Etienne did okay when he had his touches when he did play running back. Obviously, he didn't get that many because he had Chuba and Rico. But with Etienne having several of the muff punts on punt returns, I think he could be possibly someone that they can move on. I know that this is going to be a second year. I would, in my opinion, I think it's more likely he stays versus goes. But if you can find a running back in the later rounds or in free agency and Brooks is healthy, I don't think they're going to keep 4, they're to keep 3. So Etienne could possibly be on the practice squad. We'll see. But yeah, if the Brooks can stay healthy, this offense is going to look a lot different. And we saw how it looked whenever when he was playing. He looks a lot different, man. He's very explosive. So hopefully he can stay healthy and contribute next season. Now, I want to talk a little bit about XL. So Dan, during his press conference, preached about being patient with XL. So signaling to me, it's signal that he's probably isn't going to go anywhere. Obviously, you have T-Mac at wide receiver 1, Jalen Coker wide receiver 2, but an XL can be that third guy, but he needs to be consistent, a lot more consistent. He needs to be able to catch the tough catches. Like, when the ball isn't always going to be perfect, and I feel like Jalen Coker and T-Mac, they have abilities to be able to catch those tough catches. With XL, it looks very ugly. I don't know the best way to say it, but it doesn't look good when he tries to. It's just almost like he gives up on the play. He's had several drops. So to me, I really think he gets in his own head. I think XL gets in his own head, and hopefully he can figure things out. But I do think it's a possibility he could be traded. Obviously, he was a first-round pick. He's going into his 3rd year. If you can get a 3rd or a 4th-round pick for him, and you can go out and get a speedy wide receiver in free agency or the draft, I think you move on from XL. You have Bryson Tremaine. Hopefully he stays. Does David Moore stay another year? We've seen that Dan Morgan does a good job getting undrafted free agent wide receivers in here. So can they draft another guy? Possibly. So I think it's more likely that XL stays, but I could also see if there's a market out there for him and they can get a 3rd or a 4th. I think they'll do it. So again, hopefully he can, if he does stay, he can continue to improve and get more confident. Because I think if you get XL ceiling is higher than Jalen Coker's, but Jalen Coker is really, really good and he's consistent. But if you can get a confident, pretty consistent wide receiver out of XL, if he can be consistent for you this season, then this is going to be a scary offense. This is going to be a fun offense to watch. Now, One guy that I think that we possibly could sign an extension to is Mike Jack. Like I know that we signed him back in March of last year on a 2-year deal. It was over 10.5 million dollars. 7 million of it was guaranteed. But do we extend him? He's 29. Typically, cornerbacks after 29 and 30, you do see a drop off statistically, anyways. But Mike Jack and JC Horn have been amazing for us. Mike Jack, in my opinion, had a better year than JC Horn, and that's not a shot at JC Horn. It's just a fact. Mike Jackson played out of his mind. Like this is such a big pickup when you have, and this is one of the things that I like about Dan Morgan is he found a not just a contributor, but a playmaker at corner using a seventh round draft selection that we weren't going to have in the squad anyway. Trade him to Seattle, and now you have this guy. So this is the thing that I love about Dan Morgan. But this is something that we possibly could do in the offseason is possibly extend him. He does have another year left on the contract. He's a physical, hard-hitting corner. He gets you interceptions. He's third in the NFL with 4 interceptions, or he's tied for third with 4. You have J.C. Horn, who's first in the NFL with 5. Mike Jackson has the 4th highest PFF grade at corner. So this is a really good group. And then on top of that, you also have Corey Thornton. Before his injury, he really helped us last year when he came in, whenever he had to cover for JC Horn or Mike Jack when they're injured. He did play a nickel a few times when Shaw Smith-Wade was out. And I thought he did really well, but that's how he ended up getting an injury. I can't remember what his injury was, but he played really well. So those 3 guys, and speaking of Corey Thornton, I do think he could be possibly an upgrade at nickel. I think nickel is something that we may look at in free agency or the draft, or again, it could be on the roster, but nickel is something that needs to be improved because Shaw Smith-Wade was exposed at tight end a lot this year while playing nickel. Corey Thornton, when he was played phenomenal. And Thornton plays the same style as Mike Jackson and JC Horn. Physical, long, lengthy. But he could be that guy. He could be a nickel, or at the very least, he's your depth at corner. But they could also look at free agency and or the draft as well. But this is something I wouldn't be surprised if we do extend Mike Jack. Would not be surprised at all. Now, someone they need to extend this season is Jalen Coker. Jalen Coker at wide receiver 2 was long overdue. What he did versus the Rams is in my opinion, a peak at what he can do when he is a true consistent part of this offense. He's tall, strong. He has reliable hands. Dan Morgan mentioned his conditioning. He looked like a different player out there. He was running and 100% it seemed every time he was on the field. Injuries, that's a valid and honest concern, but we need to re-sign this guy. Him and T-Mac together and now if you can add speed to this offense and can also allows Bryce Young to throw the ball down the field more consistently, our offense, the way it looked versus the Rams this past Saturday, can be more of a consistent thing. So I got to get myself especially if he gets re-signed, I got to get myself a Coker jersey. This guy is a lot of fun to watch. Him and T-Mac, especially Coker being consistently in the offense now and an official wide receiver too. Man, it's well deserved. It should have happened halfway through the season. These are the things that I'm happy for Jalen Coker, but this should have happened a long time ago. These are the things that Dave Canales, when you see a player ascending and you see a starter that is just not playing well, you got to sit him, just like you sat Bryce down. Sit him. And if Bryce was able to come back and play better, well, if XL can take that with maturity and grind and really try to focus and hone his craft, then good on him. But when a player is ascending and playing better than the person that's in front of them on the depth chart, you need to allow them to take over until that starter is able to kind of get out of that funk or start showing that they can play consistent football. Like, best player is on the field, no matter if you're a first round pick or if you're an undrafted free agent. But I do think that this is going to happen. He's an exclusive undrafted free agent. We have exclusive rights with him, so he can only negotiate with us this year. But this is someone you have to re-sign. You can't let him go anywhere else. Him and Bryce's chemistry together it's undeniable. Those two together is just a lot of fun to watch. It's a lot of fun to watch. Now, one of the unfortunate things that happened this past Saturday was Ike Ekwonu's injury. He had a ruptured patella tendon. I think it was his right knee. Dave Canales, whenever he was coaching for the Seahawks, you had Jimmy Graham that had the same injury, which happened in November. Obviously, Jimmy Graham plays tight end, but came back to start the next season. But Ike's injury is January. Obviously, Ike plays a different position. He's a bigger guy. He's a 300 plus pounds. You had, I think, earlier this season, you had Chargers left tackle Rashawn Slater tore his in August, and then I believe the Bears the same day that we played the Rams. One of the Bears, I don't know if he was a guard or a tackle. I think it was a left tackle, but he suffered the same injury as well. So it's be interesting to see like how they bounce back. But this injury takes 6 to 12 months. Typically 6 months to get you more functional and moving. I believe he went to go, according to Dan Morgan, he went to fly to get surgery today. This is going to be interesting to watch this offseason. This is a big question mark. What do the Panthers do? And I feel bad for Icky. He had an amazing year. He was going to get paid. I feel like that was one of the first things the Dan Morgan and Brant Tillis were going to do is sign him. Like, this guy played really well. He played really well his rookie year. He had a sophomore slump, but ever since then, especially his pass protection has gotten better and better and better. He shut out who was the guy that was with the Packers? Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name, but he played for the Cowboys. I can't remember. I can't believe I'm blanking out his name, but he didn't allow a single pressure, which was the first time in his career that he didn't get a pressure. So I feel bad for Icky. It sucks because obviously this injury cost him millions and millions of dollars because he was going to get top tier left tackle money, like 20, 25 million per year. Do we re-sign Josh Nijman, who's a free agent? I think that's good. He's going to get some leverage because he knows he's going to be getting playing time. Do we draft the left tackle? I think that's a real possibility, especially if somebody falls at 19. Typically you don't get the top tier left tackles at that spot, but if there's someone that they love that's there, I hate to say it, but it might be something that we may need to do. And then maybe you allow him Icky to come back and play left guard, or you move on. And I hate saying that because I really like Icky. The Panthers could also look at the free agent market. I haven't really looked to see who's going to be out there, but they could target a free agent. And then, Dan Morgan did say they're going to take a week by week, month by month, and kind of see how his prognosis is, how he's going to bounce back. He's a younger guy, so younger guys are going to respond better versus an older vet. But this is not something that anybody expected. Obviously, like the injury is going to alter what Dan and Brant had in store this upcoming, what they had up in store, and what their plans were for this offseason. He threw a wrench in it, not his fault, but this injury puts a wrench in those ideas, those plans, because you can't go into next year, which is an important year for Bryce and just the development of the team, but you can't go into next year with a big question mark at left tackle. You can't. At Bryce's blind side, you got to get somebody. And but it's gonna be interesting what they do. If they feel confident with how the surgery went, with the doctor saying he's going to progress well, and maybe you tag him or you sign him into a lower deal and see how, and maybe do a 2-year deal and see how he plays. So we'll see. But I feel bad for Icky, man. Hopefully he gets better. But that's going to be something to follow throughout this offseason, is what we do at left tackle. Now, so what will Dan Morgan's plans be this offseason? So this is my opinion. Obviously, like, there's a lot of different things and different ways they can go, but the one thing that Dan Morgan and Brant Tillis have done the last couple of off seasons is their approaches. Anyways, they've always attacked their needs. They've always attacked specifically their biggest needs have always been their top target in free agency. So going into their first off season, when there was a big question mark at offensive line, they went out and spent big money on Robert Hunt at right guard. They spent big money on Damian Lewis at left guard. They shored up the offensive line. The following season, the whole defense was a big question mark, but especially specifically the defensive line. They went out and got Turk Wharton. They spent big money on Trayvon Moore, the safety. They try to get Milton Williams. So that whenever every offseason, the last couple off seasons, whatever our biggest need was, they went out and they went. That was their target. That was where they spend big money. So going into next season, we do have over $28 million in cap space. Now we do have rollover from this year, which is over 24 million. So total that we're going to get into next year is going to be just over 53 million. Obviously, we're going to be re-signing some of our guys. We can always change, and create a little more cap space if we want to. We have money to spend, but our needs aren't a secret. I think edge rusher is number one. I think that I'm going to do a separate video on all these as far as what edge rushers are going to be out there in free agency. And this isn't just free agency. This is also the draft. But edge rusher is number one. We had the worst pass rush pressure percentage in the NFL. 0. And when you have, and a big reason, again, it's not just we talked about earlier with Evero and the defense not being able to get off the field at 3rd and long. It's not just Evero and the soft coverage. It's also the lack of pass rush. If you don't get to the quarterback and the quarterback is sitting there for 4 or 5 seconds and we're playing zone, any decent NFL quarterback is going to pick that apart. So edge rusher, I feel like, is number one. Inside linebacker, I think, is a close second. We need a guy that can not just we need a guy that can cover. You have a Trevin Wallace. Was it Trevin Wallace? Oh my goodness. Yeah, Trevin Wallace that he was getting better, but then he got injured and was out for the season. Roseboom, I feel like he really struggled at the beginning of the year covering tight ends. He did get better, but you can get better. You can, with all due respect, it's not a jab at Trevor Wallace, but I feel like you can get better for better linebackers and 2 better linebackers than those guys. I think I wouldn't mind having the Trevor Wallace and Christian Roseboom as backups, but we need guys that can cover and that can blitz and that are hard hitters. We could not get any, even when Evero did blitz our inside linebackers, it wasn't effective. Not at all. Not saying that they didn't get home at times, and not saying that, Christian Roseboom had a great interception in coverage against the Rams, but was it Rams? Yeah, I think so. Or maybe it was the Bucks. I can't remember, but just not consistently. But again, we talked about it earlier, left tackle, depending on the recovery time, confidence in Icky coming back. That's something that we may look at in free agency. If there's a guy out there that that can help us, I think you do that. And remember, typically the free agents that we sign are young guys that are coming into their first big contract. It's not their second or third contract. That's typically what they're going for. Now, we are a younger team. I think that could change. I do think because we're young that he could get maybe a little bit of an older guy. But I still think it would still make sense to me keeping the roster young. Could they add in a little bit more veteran help? Sure. But I think with Pat Jones coming back, and Pat Jones was really good when he was healthy. Can you get better at rushing the passer than Pat Jones? Sure. But Pat was really good at run defense. He was better than DJ Wanham. But you have him as a vet. So, I wouldn't say necessarily we would get a edge rusher that is older, but it's possible. But typically the history shows that we get a young guy that's going into his first big contract. But I think also because of the injuries along the offensive line depth is something that we could look at as well. Will we re-sign Brady Christensen? Is Cade Mays going to re-sign? I do like Cade Mays, but when you look at, and again, I would feel more confident saying this especially if we move on from Icky. Cade Mays could be somebody we re-sign, but if Icky was here, then I think that's something that we could possibly draft at. But do we re-sign Cade Mays? We're already spending a lot of money in the offensive line, so draft would make sense. Drafting an offensive lineman in 2nd, 3rd, or 4th round would make sense. I think that they need to challenge the safety position opposite of Trayvon Moore. Lathan Ransom, that's a possibility. Can he step up, or do you do you also draft another safety, or do you pick up a safety in free agency? I think that's a possibility, just given competition to Nick Scott, because Nick Scott is a great run defender. He's a hard hitter. He's he didn't really blitz that much, but he was a huge liability in coverage. I think offensively, they could also look at in free agency as wide receiver, specifically a speedster. You obviously have Jimmy Horn, that towards the later of the season, he was slowly becoming a part of that offensive as far as a vertical threat. This like gadget thing, I think he kind of took over that those type of plays when XL wasn't really playing well. But I feel like, give Jimmy Horn some opportunities to go down the field, but I think you got to add speed on this team. Like with Jalen Coker, T Mac, those are big, tall, great route runners, but you need to threaten the opposing defense with speed. Someone that can beat you over the top, someone that can catch in space and make a home run play. If we don't re-sign Rico, I think running back is someone that we could get in free agency and or the draft. But Dan is usually gets the needs in free agency. The big needs that we have, he gets them during free agency, which obviously sets up the best player available in the draft. So whatever he does in free agency, I think will definitely tell us what we're going to be doing in the draft. So those are my thoughts. I'm going to make separate videos as far as all the different, free agents that are going to be out there for each position, who we could go after. We'll talk about cap and all that as well. But we're in a good position. Just the left tackle position is it's something that that kind of scares me a little bit. We'll see what happens. I do think it's going to be I feel bad for Icky. That's definitely throws a monkey in the wrench. Throws a wrench in everything as far as just the plans that Dan Morgan and everybody had. So if you haven't already, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, leave a comment. Let me know what your thoughts are as far as like what you think Dan Morgan should do in the draft and free agency, what positions you would like him to target, and then also who you would want him to target. So I appreciate it, guys. See you on the next one. Keep pounding.